are these people?
Who are these people? Hi, everybody. It's Indy. I am back for another one-on-one, talking with some of the independent media personalities that you watch a lot, but may not know a whole lot about beyond their show. So I have them on to kind of ask them about how we ended up here and talk a little bit about their background, and we'll talk about some of the things that they talk about on their show and how they developed that. So give a warm welcome to a friend of mine, friend of the show, Matt Weinglass from the Homeless Left. Welcome to INN One-on-One.
Thank you for having me, Andy. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Bro, it's my pleasure. Is this really the first? Like, I know I was on the Homeless Left at least once, maybe even twice last summer. Is this the first time you're coming on INN?
I think this is our first time on your show. Yes, and I think we did a Truth Wire once with Craig and Fee, and you've definitely been on Homeless Left a few times. But yeah, this is a first.
Oh, so, dude, yeah, long overdue. Yeah. Well, again, it's good to have you here. I've been watching your show for God, it's got to be over 2 years now. I remember. And my first question for you was actually going to be about how we ended up having this conversation. But before we do, I wanted to mention that that I probably remember you first from covering the Hollywood strike. That's probably the first time I remember kind of seeing you introduced, maybe even like around the Lahaina time that you and Pasta maybe got hooked up. Maybe it was introduced through Pasta. I can't remember exactly what the timeline is, but I've been watching your show for a couple of years now on Rumble for the most part, censored off of YouTube, but now somehow snuck back in under the wire. Happy for that. But yeah, let's. I just wanted to again give you a little bit of an introduction. So I looked at your IMDb. I looked you up and damn, you're on IMDb and you've done a bunch of stuff. So I want to get into that, but yeah, I want you to kind of explain and to everyone what your journey's been. How did we end up having this conversation today?
That is a great question. I usually don't get to talk about this much because we're always looking forward on looking at the present, looking forward, sometimes looking back at, at history that informs us with what's going on in our world today. And that's what the show Homeless Left is about. But yeah, to talk about how I got to even the place of starting this show, it really is about my experience being here in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, and being part of the entertainment industry. And you mentioned my IMDb page. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on that page because my interest has always been about being a storyteller, as a creative, as a filmmaker. I have theater roots, so like I understand. I'm an actor too, so like I understand the art of storytelling, the art of engaging an audience, and just surrounding myself with a team of people that understood that like you have to. I guess I've always had the instinct of fighting a corporate system and fighting the studios and like doing independent filmmaking. And we had a great group of people that we developed a team here in LA over the last 10 years. It's called the Sherwood Players, and it was based on the Robin Hood mantra of the Robin Hood and the Merry Men, stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. But the whole point is that you're challenging institution and it's for the people. So it's a weird thing, Andy, that like I didn't consider it a political group. I didn't really consider myself political, although I have been on the ground. I've knocked on doors for the Democratic Party. We'll talk about that. That's another
You're from California, of course.
Yeah, so of course we knock on doors. We say, this is the party that's for the people. The other guys are the bad guys. I never crossed my mind that both parties were against the people. It never even occurred to me. But as far as my artistic journey and how you get from the entertainment industry, which has failed, it has crumbled. It is not the industry I thought it was or knew it to be. Either it's completely changed or it's always been this way and we just realized it. It was so obvious in the last 5 years since COVID, since the Democratic Party has been more than captured. It's so, to me, to be surrounded with so many artists, and I'm going to talk about this group, Sherwood Players, which we started, to be this group of artists that challenge the system. Looking back on that, I feel like the message of that was lost on the people that believed in our projects, believed in what we were doing, but didn't fully understand what the motivation of that was. As artists, as you know, and the people know this about, there's a stereotype of people coming into LA to be a star, and the lights, the glamour. I'm going to work really hard, and I'm going to get, Netflix is going to call me, and I'm going to get a role in the next big series, and I just have to work hard and send gifts to all the agents and Christmas cards and remember me. And we know the drill. We know all the ass kissing and all the do whatever it takes. But I thought within that, there was why are we doing this? Are we just trying to be famous? Are we just trying to be in lights? Are we just trying to be on red carpets? What are we trying to do? Are we trying to be honest storytellers? Are we trying to be people who in our art challenge systems, challenge ideas, give an audience something to think about, to go home with, to remember, to be inspired by? So that's what the group Sherwood Players was about. So when politics comes into play, and we always said, oh, keep your politics outside the door when you come into the space, the creative space. And we've been able to do that. And that's something I kind of understood. You don't want people getting into political debates when you're trying to put up a play or trying to, get ready for a film shoot. You don't want to be talking about who'd you vote for. I get that. But at some point, you have to understand that when the system itself that we are existing in tells us stay home, put a mask on, stop interacting with each other, vote blue no matter who, stop the greatest threat in the history of the planet is Trump, or the greatest threat in the history of the planet is Putin, the next Hitler. It's always the next Hitler. When they start dividing us from the inside out, when they start telling us that we have to be careful of our speech, that words are dangerous, words are violence, all of a sudden, as an artist, you go, wait a minute, that's not how art works. We're supposed to be okay with telling another side of the story. We're supposed to be okay with a real human experience. We shouldn't be censoring ourselves. The problem is that this town showed its true colors during these last few years when we saw them censoring themselves, saw them getting angry at each other, saw them getting angry at me for trying to be vocal during the lockdown, trying to be vocal about the anti-war movement. The anti-war movement was supposed to be something that the people were about. Why did the Democratic Party embrace war? I guess it's always embraced war, but why didn't we say something about it? Why were we now calling each other names for not following the narrative, not following the COVID narrative, not following the Ukraine? We're going to go save democracy yet again. These are the things that got me so upset that I wanted to do something about it. So what I did is I introduced the concept that Sherwood Players would be vocal about this, and be open that we're not trying to push a political ideology, but we're just trying to be about things we should all care about: free speech, the betterment of society, and just like the workers' rights and things that most people care about, regardless of who you vote for. But they weren't having it. They did not want those conversations to happen. So you mentioned the strikes. I thought that was a great thing to bring people behind, because everybody in LA believed that we needed to be in the streets for the striking, and that was important. The problem was that was not the same as the other movements. The reason why that was okay to be in the streets for was because we were told to do it. We were emailed about it. The SAG, the heads of SAG told us, get in the streets. The heads of the WGA told us to. That's the only reason they listened to that one. But when I said, let's get in the streets against the COVID mandates, when I said, let's get in the streets against the Ukraine war, when I said, let's get in the streets against a freaking genocide that the Democratic Party was funding at the time, and it's now being obviously still funded by the current administration, they said, no. We're not supposed to do that. Nobody emailed us about that. So Matt, you got to back down. Well, here we are. Fast forward. Here we are. Homeless Left exists as kind of a cry for free speech, a cry for humanity that I was not seeing done in the company I created, which I feel now has been hijacked by the people that were first inspired by the original cause, and it's not the thing it was that it started to be. And that's why we're doing the show now, and that's why we represent these values that are important, and we hope we can continue to inspire people, even if they were against us before. Maybe they'll be, they'll see something and be like, oh wait, maybe Matt's onto something. But I'm not looking back. I'm looking forward. And that's how we got where we are. But I'm still a storyteller. I'm still a creative. I'm still somebody who wants to, make good projects and inspire an audience. And we're still working on stuff here. I'm just working with a little different group of people. But we definitely, have a mission, and that's to fight for humanity and to do whatever we can with the skills we have and impress on the world as much as we can.
That's fascinating. God, so many different ways I can go. So So how did you kind of? I guess it was through pandemic that you found independent media, and the ability to stream for yourself on YouTube with a streamer. I figured, if you coming from television production, theater, maybe a little bit more, something from a studio with, I see you've got the nice stuff behind you, more like green screen stuff. I don't know if you've ever really done like live show production or recorded show type of movie stuff. I saw you've done documentaries. I didn't know if like there was the thought at some point to maybe take the Homeless Left from beyond like StreamYard into a live studio type of setup, more like where the traditional media has presented. I kind of feel like at times that the audience has kind of worn out on the StreamYard style of podcast slash. They're looking for more production. This whole thing to me seems like people are going for what is more entertainment than actual information. And some ways of dressing up the information is with a fancy studio, for example. We see that happening. Rumble put together, for example, like a really nice studio for people to work out of and to present from. Do you think there's like merit there, or I'm out of my mind? Like I'm trying to figure out, how do we continue to gain on and compete with the corporate media entity that you were in the belly of the beast of for over a decade? So I'm just curious to hear your take on stuff like that, on production value.
Yeah, no, you raise an excellent point, excellent concern of ours. We have to be ahead of the game. I think the way we do that is, and this is just my own personal experience, and I think the reason why I was able to elevate Homeless Left so quickly, and like it was just a 2-year period that we got to where we are now, and we certainly aren't done. We're going to we have a lot more, ground we want to cover. But I think the reason I figured this out early when I first started streaming, and we started streaming. We weren't the Homeless Left. I tried with my group to do we had a show called the Sherwood Shakeup. So for the Sherwood players, and it was just, I didn't realize at the time, but it was just me kind of practicing if this is something I even want to do. I didn't want to. We were in a lockdown. We weren't allowed to have our in-person events. I mean, our group thrived on community and thrived on being in person. And we had our international film festival and our courses, our directors courses. I teach a directing course as well. There's all sorts of stuff you do in person, big, premiere events and summer parties and networking events. And you don't do any of that during COVID, right? Everybody's gone. So I started the streaming thing, and I thought we were onto something. I was like, hey, let's, at least right now we can talk about stuff. And then that's when I realized the conversations, people were getting angry. They're texting me during the show. Like we're having guests come on, and I'm learning the thing. I'm like, oh, I can do this. Just a couple interviews and what's going on. And you start asking real questions, and people are like, no, you don't get into politics. It's like, no, but let's have discussions about our industry and how it's failed. Can't we do that? Well, anyways, long story short, when I came into the Homeless Left, I noticed one thing that I could bring to the table that others I didn't see so much of. Now, I'm not claiming like I have a whole experience being a journalist. I do have documentary filmmaking experience. So I understand how to get to the human story. I was getting good, a little, pretty good and respectful enough at conducting an interview. I was like, well, let's see, how can I make this work as someone who hasn't been a journalist my whole life, but is interested in storytelling and engaging an audience so they don't turn the channel on you. So what I did is I brought in my production experience to the table and said, if I can bring this element in, and that kind of has a unique flavor to it. And if you've seen the show, if you guys have seen the Homeless Left, you know that we always like to start off with a little opening. It's got a little, almost an SNL feel, where you do a opening sketch and it leads to the credits and you open it up. So I have this ability to do that all from our home studio, and to present like it's a show, present like we're going live. And I feel that way every time we go live, that it's a countdown to curtain. And if anybody that spent time in theater, that you're getting ready for that opening night, you take it seriously, and you have your off book. If you're an actor, if you're a techie, you know exactly what the light cues are. You know it's time to cut to this, it's time to do that, bring this person in. So like a light up on stage right, center, or stage right, whatever. That's the equivalent of time to bring a guest in, and you hit the mark. So those type of skills to make things feel fluid and sharp and make people feel like they're experiencing a show. So I call the Homeless Left is a show. I consider it a show. We're doing honest reporting, honest journalism, but that's how we keep their attention. So to get to your question about what do we do moving forward, if people are getting tired of this and they want something else, we have to just look for other creative ways to think outside the box. Yes, of course, I'd love to have a big studio right now. We can't afford that where we are. I'm still working on some projects. Like I said, I'm not out of Hollywood. I'm still in Hollywood. I can still, actually, I use the show a lot to report on what's going on in Hollywood because I still have one foot in the door and I can tell people, here's what's really going on. It's, I do a show, a segment we call This Week in Hollywood, and I'm able to tell people, here's what I'm seeing firsthand right here. So using that knowledge, it makes the show exciting. But looking forward, what do we do about people wanting something more production oriented? I think we just got to continue to look for creative ways to make that screen flash. Now, it's not about selling out and being like, shock and awe and boo pizzazz and blah, 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 crazy fun thumbnails that don't, National Enquirer stuff and, oh, buy a copy right now before it's too late. It's not about that. It's just about drawing people's attention to something that makes them feel like, hey, I'm emoting from this. I feel something from this. I want to hear what they're going to do next. That's the big question, how you can answer that. How do you keep an audience in their seats? You give them something that makes them emote and something they can stick with them and makes them want to come back again for the next time. That's what you got to do without compromising your integrity, your point of view, your vision as a producer, as a filmmaker, as a journalist. Still being honest with that, but know that you have to get them in the seats and you got to figure out a way to keep them there. That's the question we're going to have to keep asking ourselves and answering time and time again moving forward.
Yeah, my challenge with that is people want to be entertained and it almost be kind of light and funny or drama. They like drama between streamers or between politicians. Of course, I don't want to focus on the duopoly or on the entertainment side of this necessarily, because we're trying to cover serious topics and serious news, and it's getting people to stop, pay attention, and listen to the serious news over the bread and circuses. That's where I tend to kind of be tearing my hair out at the moment, because we have so many serious things happening, and you're covering them on the Homeless Left from what they're doing in labor and trying to get everybody in line behind a Democratic Party agenda, for example, because big labor has definitely aligned itself with the Democratic Party. Now that Trump's in power, they're starting to hedge a little bit and lean a little bit more towards that. They're still heavily Democratic. And then, of course, the reason why you got banned in the first place was talking about the stuff with regard to the COVID emergency and the lockdowns and everything that was perpetrated there. And then, of course, the anti-Zionist stuff and the genocidal stuff for October. So, like all these different things that the themes that we've been covering, it's hard to mix in entertainment with all of those things to keep people engaged and emotionally not just depressed. And that's what we hear a lot of is, the shows that we're covering, the stories that we're covering, the angles that we're covering between corruption and the corporate takeover of industry and government. And then, of course, technology invading all of our privacy and helping those tech bros take away, eat at our privacy and rights. There's so many different parts to this. It's like, how do we start to, and what I want to do is do something different from what Hollywood is doing. So it's like entertaining in a way that's different from the glitz and the booms and I'm still trying to figure it out, man. And I'm struggling. I think you've got it more figured out. I think part of it is collaboration with good people, and having conversations that people want to listen to and stimulate ideas and get them thinking in ways that they hadn't and hearing perspectives that they hadn't before, which is what we try to bring at INN. We have Black immigrants, we have rednecks living in Florida, we've got Puerto Ricans living in Trenton and anti-Zionists living in North Jersey. Like there's a little bit of everything here for us, for them. And I don't know if it's that maybe, look, the thing that I think you do very well also is consistency. Your look is consistent. Your feel is consistent. Your backgrounds, your segment times, styles, and everything are consistent for people to get used to. I think that's also familiarity and consistency is also really a key. It's just how often can you do this? You know, is once a week enough? Like, I feel like it kind of gets lost in the sauce with all the people that are doing daily stuff out there. Thoughts?
Well, yeah, no. So consistency, you're absolutely right. That's very important. So how much can you, what's our bandwidth? What's our amount that we can handle, you know, before we're like, that's enough, before we get overspent and we like have a breakdown. It's too much, right? So you know, we figured out we got to do 2 shows a week. So we're doing the Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're doing at least 3 hours. I don't know why it goes sometimes 4 hours, occasionally 5. People say, how can you go that long? Well, we have so many things to cover. And I try to break things up. Like you said, there's a consistency of approach, and I try to find places to put stuff. And sometimes things are convoluted and they overlap. But you find ways to put stuff in its little box, and it's not to shortchange it, but it's to tell people this is time for a This Week in Hollywood spot. This is time for we have a World War III watch that we do. This is time for a real fake news update. So we have different themes of each segment. It takes a lot of work to prep. I don't think I could do more than 2 shows. But Andy, you're talking about, is that enough to get people to, you know, to integrate into their life and to say, hey, it's time for the homeless left. It's time for indie media. There's other ways. And I think you've discovered this because it is about collaboration and you go on other shows. So I've been going pretty much weekly or every 2 weeks on with Garland Nixon. I go on for an hour. We have a discussion. So people can count on that. Now, he's not as consistent, so that could happen at any time of the week, but it happens, and people know they can see me there. Then there's Truthwire, Craig Pasajardula and Fee. They do their show, and they're not consistent either, but they do try to do at least 2 or 3 a week. And you know, I go on and I can, you know, can kind of chime in there. And for me, it kind of helps me do a better show on Tuesdays and Thursdays because I'm able to kind of try out some conversations. I might learn something in my conversation on their shows, and I'll bring it into the next one with the homeless left. So I just look for ways to be consistent. But I think ultimately, I'm going to bring this up. This is important. Know your audience, or be in the process of learning about your audience. Again, I think we say know your audience. You can't just snap your fingers and know. You have to be constantly investigating. Who's watching, who's listening, when you go on another thing, when you go over here, when you go on different platforms. So we're multi-streaming. So know your audience on Rumble, know your audience on YouTube. I know that there's things I can't upload on YouTube, not just because I don't want another medical misinformation strike. I know that the audience on YouTube is primarily on our channel because they are for free Palestine. That's their big issue. I can tell. I can see the comments. I know. And we had the video that blew up that got us recognized now on this. We called it a burner channel. I didn't know it was going to get any traction at all. It's a video about Gal Gadot filming a movie. Everyone, the Zionist Gal Gadot in London, and the people of London showed up and protested and shut it down. And I brought my little thing. You said, like, I have a consistent way I present. And I got her really good in this, really good. I did my homework. I walk people through the story, and I make the people in London who came out to shut this down. And as a filmmaker, I bring my personal experience. I tell people, I can tell you what it's like on a film set. I can tell you you have to shut down if you're doing an outside shoot and there's people making noise, you can't finish. And so it sucks. But guess what? They cast Gal Gadot as Zionist, and they deserve to be taught a lesson. You better recast your role. You're going to keep getting shut down. So I talk people through it, and we do it in a fun way. Did I just say fun? Did Matt just say fun talking about Zionism? You know what? These people responded. We have 90,000 people have seen that video now because I kind of have fun mocking her and celebrating the people that were on the side of history, the right side of history. And I gave them I guess what you would say, rewarded them with what we call the loudest voice of the week. It's again, it's a tool I use for entertainment on a hard issue, and people responded. And if you go to that video and look at the comments, people are applauding that approach. It makes them feel good amidst all of the horrible stuff we're seeing on our cell phones, all of the genocide and the starvation and the stuff being misreported and the celebrating of these psychopath Zionists, celebrating all of the destruction and the starvation and barbecuing outside of their right on that border, and all of those things. The list is so long. But in amidst all of that, we find a way to give them a little smile and go, we got them good. Good job, people of London, showing up, stopping that film shoot, stopping Gal Gadot, who was in the IDF, by the way, who murdered people in 2006. She's not just So we hold her accountable. The people in London hold her accountable, and we give them loudest voice of the week. And that video blew up. On Rumble, not as much. We know our Rumble audience is more about our challenging of big pharma. We understand that. So we can get applause from them when we bring on doctors like Dr. David Martin and Peter McCullough. We have them come on, and our Rumble audience responds. So we have to know our audiences and learn about them as they change and grow. And I think that's going to help us stay ahead of the game as it keeps shifting.
You mentioned Zionism, and my big question when it comes to this is, you're right, literally, again, in the belly of the beast, where if you're not a Zionist in Hollywood, there's not a whole lot of jobs and a whole lot of opportunity there for you. And there is a small but growing group of people that will support those who are anti-Zionist. But good luck getting a large studio to pick it up. Good luck getting it into theaters across the country. Good luck getting it spread out across without having shrieking, hysterical ADL, kind of opposition out there. Baytar USA, for example, who I've talked about quite a bit. These organizations that exist, APAC, of course, paying our lawmakers in order to buy off their silence and their complicity into passing laws making it illegal to criticize Israel and to be an anti-Zionist, which is beyond insane. Thought police. What's it like trying to work among all of these Zionists in Hollywood side by side? First of all, knowing who they are and what they're about, trying to break in with studios that are being run by Zionists, and trying to convince them, and that the minute they go and they look up your show on wherever it is, or they Google you, they're going to see this stuff. So it's like, how does this move forward in a way that they are still not controlling the narrative, which we know they've been trying to do? I also wanted to ask about, and we can get to that in a second, Diddy and Hollywood and freak off parties. And again, you're right there. There's people who talk all over Hollywood about this stuff, and it was not a secret at all about what was happening. The way that was used and weaponized for Kamala Harris. I truly believe that entire thing went down because they needed Hollywood to get on board with the Harris campaign. They weren't. And they needed to figure out a way to force them to do it. And it's ugly, it's dirty, but it ain't like they've never used blackmail to convince people to do certain things before, and scaring the crap out of them with the possibility that tapes might exist with them on it certainly got a lot of people in line. You got to see very quickly who was in that ecosphere based upon who actually got in line and on board with the Harris campaign. Are you seeing any of this stuff? Again, am I crazy with all of this? And what was your take seeing it from the Hollywood perspective?
No, I'm glad you brought this up, Indy. This part's important. And I think people are you're gonna be amused by what happened here. So I had some aha moments in my progression here, getting to where I am now. So let's go back to, we'll go back to 2016. So I'm going to answer these questions. So we go back to 2016, when I was first learning the art of pitching films as an independent filmmaker and trying to raise money from independent sources to challenge the studio. Because I've always been against the studios. I was never about making deals with Netflix. I never really was inspired by that. I never wanted Netflix to say, here's a check, now go away. We're going to make your story for you. And we're going to give you a little tiny percentage of buyout to shut your mouth, and you'll get a little executive producer credit. That wasn't enough for me as an artist, right? So I never wanted to convince Netflix. I wanted to convince the investors, venture capitalists. I learned all about this back in 2016. I had some investors I was cozying up to, figuring out the game. What do you need me to do? And I realized as an actor, I was falling for the same thing as a fundraiser, the same thing I fell for as an actor. And I'm still a producer, I'm still an actor, but I understand that when you go into an audition room and they tell you, you want this role, you want to be in a Will Smith movie, and this actually happened to me. I'm not kidding you. You want to be in this Will Smith movie? Get down on all fours and bark like a dog and pretend you're this like monster climbing out of a bathtub. And it's like, those are the moments you go, what the hell am I doing? This is not so what else do you want me to do? Huh? What do you want me to do? So I understood that was not something I was okay with as an actor. I want to create the film myself that, with people I'm working with, where we can create roles that we want to play, not roles that they say, do this or else. If you want to have one line in this film, So the mistake I made was I applied that same thing. I said, well, I'm not going to do it as an actor. I'm not going to get down all fours and bark like a dog for Netflix. However, what I am going to do is I'm going to tell these venture capitalists, these outside money, outside Hollywood, that like what they see. They like my scripts. They like our team. They like the story. They say, hey, Matt, here's what I need you to do to get my $3 million for your film. And this really happened. Hey, Matt, here's what I need you to do next. What do you need me to do? And before I knew it, I was on all fours barking like a dog for the investors. And at the end of the day, we don't get the money because I'm telling them I'm willing to sell out whatever. What do you need me to do next? What kind of market research do you need? You want me to recruit this? You want me this? All the hard work. People like, did you get the commitment of the money? I go, yeah, I have it on paper. I have this LOI from the investor, $3 million ready for my film. It's going to be deposited in the account. I set everything up. I got our LLC. I got our business papers all ready to go. Everything ready for the transfer, ready for the put it into put it into account. Let's go. We have it all set up. Why didn't the money come? Well, because somewhere along the line I lost my voice of who I am and why they were attracted to it in the first place, because I had something to say as a storyteller. So with all the chaos of COVID, with all this stuff, and 2016 is important because that's the year I knew, and this is before COVID, I knew in 2016 that the Democratic Party was captured. I figured that out watching Bernie. And I figured out that nobody in Hollywood wanted to talk about it. They told me to shut up. I listened to them at the time. I kept my mouth shut. The Zionist control of this town is out of control. I didn't even fully understand that at the time, but I knew I just need to keep my mouth shut and I can get to where I need to be. Don't talk about politics. Don't talk about Zionism. Don't talk about anything. Don't talk about Bernie and Hillary should have been president if she didn't win because of sexism and Putin capturing the election and Bernie bros. That's why she lost. Keep your mouth shut. Don't challenge it. So fast forward now, this is how I move forward in this town. We have a film right now we've attracted a lot of investors for. We're telling a film about union organizing. It's called Confessions of a Union Buster. We have all the story rights. We have investors that are interested to come in right now. We have meetings. I'll name drop right now. I don't care. I'll tell you right now. The people we sought out are people we know are against this crap in Hollywood. Those are the people. Now, we're not telling a story about Palestine. I don't think we're ready for that yet. I would like to do a feature film about that at some point. But I know the union issue is something that Hollywood can get behind. I just know that to get the money and to get people to be a solid team, they have to be people who are critical of the Zionist captured Hollywood. So who do we go to? We have meetings right now set up with Mark Ruffalo. We have meetings set up right now with Jane Fonda. These are people, they're for the union movement. They've also have a history of saying free Palestine. And when you say that in Hollywood and you're people with a name like that, recognition like that, you're challenging something there. I know Matt Weinglass. Matt Weinglass doesn't have the pull of Mark Ruffalo or Jane Fonda, but I know that they're going to look me up and they're going to say, this guy has some courage. This guy stands behind what he's saying. And his last name might be Weinglass, but he understands that there's a capture there. And he understands that, hey, I'll tell you right now, I get into meetings because of my name. So there's total privilege here as the Jewish population, total privilege. I'm not Jewish. I just happen to have a last name. I know it's benefited me. So there's things you use to your advantage, but you keep your principles. And I'm telling you, the people writing the checks, even if they don't agree with you ideologically fully, they respect that you have a vision, they respect you have courage, and they respect you do not compromise, you do not get on all fours and bark like a dog. That's the person they want to write a check to. That's the lesson I've learned.
Man, I sure hope so. I've seen so much of the narrative that we've been trying to fight against is just prevalent everywhere. And another person you might want to reach out might be Susan Sarandon, of course. Yes. She's of course famous for being, and there are several anti-Zionist actors throughout Hollywood, and they're becoming more and more because they're still trying to whitewash genocide. They helped Sheryl Sandberg produce this fake atrocity propaganda film about October 7th and about the Israeli women that allegedly claimed that they were raped, even though they can't name one or produce any actual evidence of it. And man, that whole story is nuts. All right. And then you've seen protests, and it's happening literally right now as we speak, that there are people protesting in downtown LA. A lot of that appears to be manufactured, but there is also legitimate outrage about what the Trump administration and how ICE is behaving. There's legitimate outrage over the fact that LAPD is complicit and working alongside ICE, whereas even in a sanctuary city, they're not supposed to be assisting with these kind of things unless they literally are seeing illegal activity. We've seen pallets of bricks allegedly being delivered to certain places we've seen this playbook before. Oh, and it also just happened to come the week after the Trump administration announced that they were contracting Palantir to create a total information awareness database on all of us. So bring in somebody, send in the narrative distractors. It just feels like this is all on cue. It's intended to give them the authority, or to give them the excuse to ramp up the authoritarianism even further. And that they strategically chose LA. They could have chosen San Diego, which is closer to the border and has just as much of an issue. I feel like that was, deliberate. That a lot of this stuff is orchestrated and deliberate, and maybe even in concert with the uniparty Democrats, who also stand to benefit from private prisons increasing their wealth, from Palantir and surveillance companies ramping up and increasing the clampdown that they have over the United States and over our citizens. I don't necessarily think that, even though the Democrats claim to be pearl clutching and hand wringing over everything, half of it is because Trump's doing it and not because they got the opportunity to do it, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. And you know what, Andy, you just hit every single point that needs to be said. And if anybody out there is watching the other streams and other coverage of this, and they're not mentioning that stuff, they're not mentioning the timing of Palantir, they're not mentioning the PSYOP possibility and citing the in the past, we've seen this before. You always want to look at the playbook they always reuse. You guys think that they do the playbook once and then they go, oh, that worked out great, let's not do it again. So we have to look at the history and the patterns of behavior, and that's the kind of commentary we need right now. So you hit it on the head. Obviously, I'm preaching to the choir here, but the point is, we need to look at this. So this weekend, I know when people see this thing, the whole June 14th thing. I mean, this is a massive problem that the LA is used as a blueprint. We're here right now. We've been in the streets. We've been covering this, and we see, like you said, it's important to say this is a real issue. ICE is actually going in. Like I can tell you right now, ICE is going in to elementary schools and graduations. They're ripping people off the stage. That's not a joke. And it's only happening in the last week and a half. It wasn't happening before that. This is all time. And I ask people, why do you think that? Why, try to get people thinking, like, why do you think the timing was now? Why didn't he just start it on day one when he got in? Like, because he's fulfilling his promise. He says, we're going to do this. But why now? Look at the calendar. Look at Palantir. Look at and this is the part that's very important in the bill itself, the big, beautiful bill, right? You remember big, beautiful bill, right? This thing has a clause about the AI clause, right? That says states cannot make any adjustments on this. This is a federal order
for 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. That's in there. And so this all goes down, and then the ICE rates just massively increase. This is insane. And for perspective, and people know that watch our shows, they know that the Obama administration, the Biden administration, they've deported way more than Trump ever did. In fact, if you look at the numbers, it's 600 people a day since he took the oath for the second term, since January, 600 a day. Obama averaged 1,200 a day. Biden was more than that. So let's be, and of course we had the open border policy. We have the problem. We have the obviously American imperialism. You don't hear about this talked about at all.
I mean, but the truth is, I don't hear anyone ever advocating for open borders. I've never heard about, this conversation about open. First of all, the reason why they're coming here in the first place is because we bombed the shit out of their country. We sent the CIA to destabilize their leadership to sell us cheap resources and made it untenable for them to be able to even stay there in the first place. Then they risk everything they have. They put everything they have on their backs to hump through 3 different countries that doesn't want them. They get here to the border and seek asylum, and some are trying to do it the right way. That is a legal, legitimate process. And they're then hit. Democrats want open borders. No, we don't want open borders. And nobody wants open borders. No. Again, remember what a border really is, too. It's an arbitrary spot in the sand that somebody decided at some point belonged to XYZ. I mean, I've always said people are not illegal. It's just the status of where they are in a country is fluid unless they are literally criminals, and they've acted, and the Trump administration specifically, and the Democrats have helped to perpetrate this like every single immigrant is a criminal that's coming here, when that is the furthest thing from the truth, and that most of the immigrants that are here were not criminals there, and also they commit less crime than people that were born natively in the United States. It's ignorant of all of those issues. And I'm sorry to interrupt there, but man, it is so frustrating when you hear some of these talking points that get thrown out, and then the phrases Democrats throw out, open borders. What does that even mean? I mean, first of all, we built this big, beautiful fence, right? I mean, how much do we have of Trump's wall that was built? By the way, not against Canada at all. Canada wasn't a problem coming in. It only had to be against Mexico, because we didn't have any mules coming in from Canada. And also that there are more immigrants that come in illegally on airplanes than ever do at the border. Nobody ever wanted to do anything about that. It's wow. Sorry to go off on an open borders tirade, but that talking point is one that has been used to demonize the immigrant community. And, look, you talked about Trump. Why didn't he start doing this day one? And that's an excellent question. Was it because he wanted to have get rid of the liberals that were in place that could potentially stop it? That might be one way, or one reason that I could see. But also that it's all timed out.
It's all timed out.
You're saying.
This is all timing. The June 14th, Flag Day, Trump's birthday, the Army's 250th anniversary. This big, the mainstream is presenting this as a North Korea-esque celebration, dictator celebration, no King's Day. So this is all created on purpose. And you can hear, like I saw a clip of Rachel Maddow presenting this and going, Trump's plan of military installation in all these places, and we have military here right now. We have the National Guard, we have the Marines. They just showed up. This is, and now we have a curfew. By the way, we have a curfew now implemented by Mayor Karen Bass. So all these things are in line with the lockdown policy that was already tested on us during COVID. So everyone's going to comply to this. But the point is, the timing is everything. Rachel Maddow telling us that Trump's plan is backfiring? No, it's going exactly as planned. You want to create a new George Floyd moment. You want to create this color revolution. You can do it very easily by you trigger people with this ICE raids. These are real. Again, I want to be very clear. The ICE raids are real. Ripping people out from their graduations in elementary schools are real. However, getting people in the street and calling it a No King's Day because Trump is uniquely racist, uniquely a power hungry. That's the trick they've had us fall for. And this is what's going to create the problem. You put infiltrators in every city. You mentioned the bricks. They're all set up. I've seen it for myself here. We were on the ground in LA. We saw the infiltrators. There's a precision to them. They're very well trained. These are people that are set there, whatever you want to call it. They could have actual training. It could be MK Ultra. We don't know the source of the training. We know it's very deliberate. It's very personal. They're very good at it. And they can get a group think going in a crowd to say, now it's time to attack the police. Guess who's not getting reprimanded for attacking the police? The person that instigated it. The police know that this.
The ones wearing masks and hoods for the most part.
Yeah, we saw this guy on the 101. They shut the 101 down the other day, and the cops were all lined up, and there was an instigator that wanted to get the crowd to attack the police. How do you do that? You go up in their faces, and the police didn't do anything. This guy was completely untouched. But look at his gear, his garb. He's got a Palestine towel around his head. It's Free Palestine. He's got a communist flag around his back, and he's wearing a sweatshirt that says "Property of Allah," and he's yelling at people that you dumb Democrats, you dumb Democrats. I'm like, what happened in the brainwashing? I think there's a little glitch in his mind. He's this is completely obvious. We started yelling fed at him, and people said, get him out of here. And he's not, this is not what we're doing. So you have to be vocal if you see this, if you're at a protest.
And they seized on that guy and used the photos of that guy as a narrative to frame all of the protests as that.
Correct.
As Russian, issues, right? Russian sponsored because they had to tie Putin into it, right?
Yeah, you have to tie everything. Radical left, communism, Free Palestine is really Islamic tirade against Jews. So everything all thrown together.
Iran too. Don't forget Iran. We got to throw Iran in there because you got to help out the Israelis that want to bomb Iran.
Yeah, so it's
wow.
Yeah, wow. So that's happening. And so LA is the template for the other cities to follow course. And we're seeing now things pop up in Atlanta. We're seeing the same stuff. And this is, look, they're getting weapons. These are fireworks and rocket launchers. I'm telling you, we were in Compton 2 days ago. This is dangerous, man. The military was out there firing back and forth with the so-called protesters who are launching rockets back and forth each other, blowing up. I'm not even kidding you. This happened here. And like, this is right where the LA riots took place back in 92. And we're like, look, let's look at the history. You mentioned history. This is the only way people will understand it. If you're watching right now and you think I'm over exaggerating and just being theatrical, oh, there's Matt with the theatrics, just trying to get people to the entertainment element to get views. No, this is real. This is happening. Look at history. Look at the way every war on fill in the blank is manufactured. Every single one. War on drugs. How do you do that? CIA drops the crack cocaine into the hood. Get them hooked on it. Get the Bloods and Crips. Arm them. Arm the Bloods and Crips. Create the war zone. What else do they manufacture? War on terror. Every time we fund ISIS, we create the threat. Israel's great at this. Israel does this. This was on October 7th. You initiate the Hannibal Directive. You create the situation, manufacture consent to get revenge. We got to go after Hamas, right? So we got to go after the terrorists. Who are the terrorists? What are you talking about? War on terror, war on terror, war on drugs. COVID, I'm going to throw that one in. You create the circumstance to say we're all in this together for the greater good, compromise your rights, compromise everything, shut down society. You're expendable because you're a low guy. We need to do what's right for the greater good. So your job's expendable. Your kids are expendable. If you complain, then you don't care about grandma. You want grandma to die. You remember that one during COVID? It's the same thing over and over and over again. And it's happening real time. And I just want to tell people, if you can see it after the fact, And that's great. If you guys have if you're good at looking back and studying history and seeing how we got where we are, that's great that you have that skill. I'm asking you, I'm imploring you guys right now to start applying that in real time. Let's not wait 20 years to look back and say, what happened there? Let's do it now. And that's what we were doing with COVID. That's what we're living through this. I didn't know. I was too young during 9/11. I didn't know. I look back, I go, God, what was that? Manufactured consent to hate Muslims and to greenlight an entire Middle East plan for Israel, like the entire time, 7 wars in 5 years, all of that manufactured. So I don't want people to look back on this time and say, what was up with that June 14th? What was up with that whole George Floyd moment? Because that's what they want. They want a George Floyd moment this coming weekend. I hope they don't get it, but it looks like we're headed there. Let's be vocal about this now and know that they're pitting us against each other, and they're bringing in the surveillance state to the next level, like they did with the Patriot Act. They're doing it again with Palantir. Palantir is Patriot Act times 1,000.
Yeah, and the other important point that I wanted to make is that just because it's a psyop doesn't mean that somebody doesn't get hurt. Actually, usually it means that somebody has to get hurt as part of the psyop in order to emotionally trigger people enough to then be psychologically manipulated and motivated to do things they wouldn't ordinarily do. For example, and we've seen this happening too often lately, all right, is the Boulder, Colorado incident that then spurred on our lawmakers to then want to, at Israel's demand and behest, try to once again push through this anti-Semitism laws that state that criticizing Israel is actually against the law and anti-Semitic and hate speech. All right. But more important, the other one that I wanted to impress upon was the one in Washington, D.C. We saw a lot about this about 3 weeks ago. And part of the thing about a psyop is notice how it disappears out of the news cycle very quickly most times. All right. Real things that are happening continue over time. Psyops happen exactly when they need to at certain times and then just kind of disappear out of the conversation. Did we lose Matt? Well, that was really weird because my internet cut out and we lost Matt, but we've got him back. It is the next day and a couple of things have happened since then. So we're going to come back. We'll talk about that. Welcome back, Matt. It's been a crazy 48 hours, huh?
It certainly has, and it's another reminder of why we are in this space to begin with, is because things happen so fast, and someone's got to do the job of keeping up on it, and it does change. Just one little thing happen, and we all have to kind of come to work, whatever that looks like. Assess, do the research, figure it out, have the conversations, present it to people, and keep going from there. So it's a fast-paced world, man, that we're in right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, so just to recap for a second, StreamYard, first of all, had an outage, which meant that you guys couldn't go live yesterday in your normally scheduled day, and that got pushed back a day. And as it turned out, it worked out kind of because overnight Israel attacked Iran with unprovoked and murdered a lot of the heads of the military and did some damage. And Iran has now since retaliated, and Tel Aviv has been hit. And it's the start. Hopefully not the start, but it doesn't look like it's ending anytime soon. Not good. So, I mean, you did hours worth of show on it. I kind of wanted to pick back up where we left off because I think it kind of dovetails into this, and we can bring right up to this at some point, but when we got cut off, we were talking about what happened in LA and how it was linked to Washington, D.C. and to Elias Rodriguez. Now, did you cover that on the Homeless Left? Had you talked about the murder that had happened, or alleged murder at the Holocaust Museum?
Yeah, we were going to dive into that, and we just as we said, that the day's events just keep coming and coming. We just don't have enough bandwidth to cover everything. So I actually would appreciate your take on it, because I'm sure it's absolutely related to all these other things we're seeing all these psyops, all these interesting things that happen to happen, the timing, and then it always seems to help the narrative of the military-industrial complex and the Israel first agenda.
I mean, there were so many different things with that. The fact that he was a Christian, but Israel kind of knew where he was, who he was, where he worked, how he was accessible, the person that, that was murdered and who he was engaged to in their whole story. I mean, I don't know who potentially could have activated this person, but the way that he was arrested, it's certainly not the way that I see any other pro-Palestine, anti-genocide protester treated by the cops, especially one that they know just murdered 2 people in cold blood on the street. The keffiyeh that fell on the ground that somebody just randomly picked up as he was being arrested, that's not evidence that the cops would need to gather. That kind of was weird. And then you have the fact that he's sitting there in front of open glass, allowed to yell Free Palestine, and not pulled in immediately. Like, there are just too many things that don't add up when you look at this story on the whole, on top of the fact that it disappeared from the headlines almost instantly. And that's when I question a narrative and an op. So those are the things that I kind of put together. And who was the biggest beneficiary, sadly, from the media and press coverage? You'd have to think it would be Israel.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so we did actually break the story when it happened. And because we didn't have time to look into the details, we're asking the same questions you're asking, Indy. This is the job of journalists. This is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to ask those questions right away. We don't have to have answers to those questions, but what you said, it's like, who's going to benefit from this? The timing of it. How does this make sense as far as they're equating it to the Free Palestine movement? How did he have the chance to hang around, yell out Free Palestine, put his hands up like, okay, cuff me now. Like my job here is done. And then, like you said, it has disappeared from the headlines. But what didn't disappear was pushing the agenda forward that Free Palestine is equated to kill all the Jews right now. That was achieved. So that goal was achieved. So anyone who's in the street with Free Palestine now, there's a message in the back of people's heads that there's that vague image of, oh, wasn't there a guy in the DC thing, and they don't really remember, but it looks like you're aligned with that. That's what I was told, and it's a subliminal messaging, because CNN was all over it the next day saying you have to understand there is no other reason that people are in the street unless they're inflicting violence like we just saw. That's the only reason, and that's it. End of story, case closed. And I think that's why the story disappeared, because they don't want people to ask any more questions. That's the final analysis. It's over. 24 hours later, it's done. That's it. Well,
I also felt like they wanted to try to link it to Iran and Hamas, that he supports Hamas, Palestinians, which equals Hamas, which equals Iran. So you make that equation, and now you look at where we're at here. They thought that potentially whoever it was might have further enraged Americans to want to go to war with Iran and support a first strike unprovoked against Iran, saying that maybe it was Iran that did this because he was supporting that. I think that in some Zionist circles, the fact that he was Christian, all right, and that somebody knew that they were putting a Christian Zionist there, and was it luck of the draw? I mean, I don't see anything in this world of intelligence and espionage and everything else that we see happening, and diplomacy too, being a luck of the draw. So somebody knew that could potentially bring in the American Christian movement, get them potentially upset with Iran as well, by making that connection on right-wing television that Hamas is funded by Iran. This guy isn't really supporting Palestine. He's supporting Hamas. Therefore, Hamas, Iran. That's what I think has been the big connection that Israel and the Zionist movement in the United States have been trying to push for a while, because of the preemptive, funny I use that word, but preemptive justification for launching some kind of a strike against Iran. who to this moment had not enriched their uranium enough to create a weapon, even though the proliferation treaty had been broken by Trump in 2018, and they were certainly free to pursue that. They didn't. They were still subjected to inspections from the IAEA, and they have not been the aggressor in any sense of the word. And we see who has. But the narrative from the media, and again, this is where we're going back to narratives, media, you being in Hollywood, and one of the places where they manufacture narrative. They manufacture consent, and they manufacture the distraction that people, and it's funny, you know, I saw today after this all happened, Monica Perez from, what's her channel? Well, she's got the Monica Perez show, but she's also on with Cognitive Dissidence with Hervoye and I can't, Mike, my Parallel Mike. So she pointed out that, you know, it's funny that they were distracting you looking in one direction when literally you should have been looking in the other direction.
Yeah.
So geographically, they're even doing it. So they got a whole uprising on the West Coast and in the West in general, when really the action worldwide was going to happen in the East. And now, tomorrow, we've got what's happening, the astroturfed, DNC funded, corporate funded, No Kings Day rally / march that's now being billed as potentially an event that could draw a false flag quite easily, that would be pinned on Iran, again, to further justify escalation after Iran retaliated on Tel Aviv. So, I mean, you did research today, you did a show. I'm kind of curious as to what your analysis and take has been on the first strike, on Netanyahu running away. Wow. And running to Athens, Greece, and them not arresting him, of course.
Yeah, of course not.
So, you know, what happens now?
What happens now? Well, these next 24 hours are going to be pretty insane. So I would say there's a few different things that can happen, but first let's try to understand the entire chessboard right now at the best we can, because we don't have all the information available. We can speculate, but let's look at what we do know on the chessboard. What we know is the funding for No Kings Day March is from the billionaire class, specifically from the Walton family, the Walmart oligarchy. So the fact that, you know, we've been out in the streets talking to people. I did a little guest on RT, which was awesome. I could get the message out a lot of people, and I went and interviewed some people on the street here in LA. What happened was the PSYOP in LA, and we talk about how they're very good at, and I say they, well, who's they? Well, this is the people that control both sides, because we know the drill. If you can puppeteer both sides against each other, well, you'll never lose. If you bet on both sides, you'll never lose. So that's an interesting realization when you're holding power. Just bet on both sides. So we've seen this before. So what you do is you get the first few days. This was genius. They were able to get people out in the streets the first few days by just implementing these ICE raids like crazy. We never see anything like that. And these were real. These aren't fake. The raids are real. They were pulling people out, like the Latino population. It's the majority people here are Latino. Just to be clear, people don't know that about Southern California. Majority Latino. So when you go into elementary schools, you go into graduations, you're pulling people out. You're hauling them away. You're breaking up families. You're scaring the crap out of people who've been here for 20, 30 years. You know, peaceful people, not a criminal record of any sort. They're hiding at home. Everyone else is taking it to the street on behalf of somebody they know, because everybody here knows somebody who's affected by it. That's how it's because it's a majority. So you're in the street. 3 days of these psyops. Andy, I'm telling you, like we saw with our own eyes. These people out of the crowd that were clearly, I would say, they're either feds, or we talk about this stuff like MK Ultra. We talk about easy stuff like just people taking a paycheck just to go out and do some stuff. But you have all these weapons set up, create the chaos. it happened for about 3 days. On day 4, it wasn't, they weren't doing it anymore. You had the military presence, you had the Marines there. They were there on day 3, but that didn't stop these psyops. They were happening on day 3. They weren't happening on day 4. So coincidentally for me, I'm going out in the street, interviewing people on day 4. It's actually the first time I can handle interviews because it was so chaotic the first 3 days. We were lucky to have our equipment in one piece and ourselves in one piece as we're maneuvering through it, trying to get some shots of the action. But day 4, I'm like, well, let's talk to some people. So we're talking to people. And what I noticed, and this could have just been bad luck on my end, I happened to go up to people for whatever reason. They didn't feel like coming out until day 4. They weren't out there the first 3 days. I go, oh, what brings you out here? They go, oh, well, we've been hearing all the media lying about how LA's in chaos, and it's not. And they're like, look around you. It's so peaceful. And I was like in the Twilight Zone. I'm like, what? And I'm like, this is not how it was the last 3 days. Okay, so it's peaceful. Well, let's talk about what's going on this weekend. Are you guys going to participate in this no King March, this national? They're like, absolutely, we're going to do it. I said, okay, well, good cause, I suppose. Are you aware of the demands? They go, well, no, we don't really care about the demands. We just feel like we don't want military in our state. We feel like the immigration policy that Trump is wrong and he's hurting people. Okay, fair enough. Those are fair points. But what if I were to tell you that it's being funded by the Walmart family, the oligarchy family, that the biggest labor organization protest has been against them. So they are the bad guys. Now they're going to fund the thing that you care about. How does that make you feel? Does that change anything? And they all said the same thing. Go, no, doesn't matter. I don't care. There's billionaires everywhere. I don't care. I just want to be here for what's right. And this is how we realize how people get captured. There's a lot of ways to do it, but it's emotion. That's the most vulnerable thing you can have put out there. If you put your emotion out and you don't bring your critical thinking brain with it, you are susceptible to be a target, and however they want to use you, they will. And I see so many people ready to go out tomorrow, and because it feels like the right thing to do. And I'm not saying it's not the right thing to do. I'm saying if you don't understand the structure of the thing you're part of, and you don't understand that if you're going to go outside, you might as well do something bigger than take that crown off of Trump's head. You might as well challenge the bigger problem. You might as well challenge American imperialism. You might as well challenge Palantir. We know these things. I just don't know how we communicate it to everyone else. And just to draw it to the other part of this, because there's so much happening at the same time. What you said, Indy, is key. It's the distraction. We had the West Coast distraction. You got now we're going to be distracted by what's going on in DC, what's going on the ground in Florida, in Texas, in Chicago. So there's a lot of places to keep an eye on tomorrow. But what's really going on is in the Middle East. What's really going on is where is Netanyahu? What does he think he's going to hide from? How long is he hiding for? What's going on in Tel Aviv right now as we're talking? And how is this going to lead up to, like you suggested, a possible false flag tomorrow, which absolutely can be pinned on Iran? That's what people like. They like to blame the foreign entity to help them understand why things went the way they did. They want to blame it on a foreign entity or something that's not challenging the thing that they believe in. And that's how you manufacture consent. It's very easy to do. It just depends on what group you're in, and they just target your group in a very personal way that gets to your emotion and gets you to feel the thing they want you to feel, and then you're a pawn of them. And that's how it works.
Yeah, man. And they have these, they're scaring the crap out of grandma and grandpa on the network news. It's interesting that they don't care that it's the Walton family. And maybe it's that it doesn't get explained to them why the Walton family is really protesting. It's really because of the tariffs from China. But those tariffs from China have been kicked down the road twice already. Now they've already kicked it down the road till the end of August. My guess is that it's only been a negotiating ploy and that we will never really see those tariffs fully implemented, that he's trying to basically maintain the protectionism that's happened for the automotive industry, maybe for a couple of other industries here and there. But I think a lot of that is fear mongering. And again, it's narrative, it's psyop. My big worry is that, they're looking to justify attacking Iran and joining in now to pile on in the next salvo, which will probably happen within the next several hours as Israel wakes up. But Netanyahu being gone is interesting because they closed the airspace over Tel Aviv and at Ben Gurion Airport. I don't know if he can even get back. My guess is that he's going to go on some kind of a worldwide tour to try to garner support because he probably doesn't have much at this point. Although he's risking in every country he goes to potentially being arrested for ICC crimes for which he's already been convicted.
Yeah.
And they keep sanctioning the guys at the ICC. Could he go to Russia and talk to Putin? I mean, Putin found out that he's been arming Ukraine. So that's an interesting part of the chessboard.
I don't think he can go to Russia. I think that, I think Putin is not going to, he's going to have to hide in secret places that are very specific to his needs right now. And he's not going to be seeing too much air. That's I don't think he's going to be doing little videos. We're going to see videos, but we're not going to see large crowds. We're not going to see the standing ovations. I think those days might be done for him. I think that might be over. Those like red carpet treatments. The
question is when does he come back? Look, he's still the prime minister. He's still got to maintain a Knesset and a cabinet and all the other things. I mean, look, I hope he doesn't come back and then he ends up losing his stuff and somebody else takes over. The question is it going to be Benny Gantz, who's even more of a hardliner than Netanyahu? I mean, none of them are a good option there. The answer really is that somebody needs to step in and shut that whole thing down. And it's going to have to be us in the UK, although we haven't given any indication that that's the case. I saw some interesting tweet about somebody suggesting that they may end up trying to prosecute Trump on charges at the ICC as well and try to bring Trump and Netanyahu. I mean, it's all kind of bluster and that's all kind of talk because nobody's going to militarily try to go and get the commander in chief of the United States and put him in jail.
Yeah. Well, I think what's important that we stop and just look at how even in our discussions, we tend to get very like, I think we have there's a danger sometimes in personifying a system that is not just captured and broken, but functioning as kind of this disgusting entity that's against humanity. So it's hard to know where to put that emotion sometimes when we get angry at a system that doesn't function for us, and we personify it to a person and blame it on that person and say if we can teach this person a lesson, if we can bring justice and get this person out and punish them and have the law work for us and say you can never do this again, we still have a broken system. And again, I won't say broken, it's a functioning system that works against us. So people do that with Trump. Obviously, that's the whole point of No King Day. The whole point is personifying the problem as this one guy, right? And we can see through that a mile away. But we tend to do it with Netanyahu. We don't want so let's not make the same mistake with Netanyahu and say,
agreed,
this guy needs to pay for the last year and a half. He needs to pay for the last 2 decades of getting us into endless wars and regime change wars and the greater Israel project. It's not Netanyahu. It's not Trump. It's a system that their face happens to be the face of. So we have to figure out a way we can destroy that system and hold that system accountable, not just the person. I think that's hard to do. It's hard to wrap our head around. I want to say when I first heard that idea of get rid of the system or fix the system, not the person. The first time I heard that was in LA. It was a protest way back in 2010. And I think it's historical context is important. If you guys remember 2010 was the Occupy Wall Street movement. Bernie was actually big then. And people were coming to LA. LA was big at the time. We had a whole thing going around City Hall back then. Same place we're doing the protest this last weekend. They were sitting down. It was this big sit down thing. And one of the speakers that showed up, I remember this was a very important moment for me personally, just as somebody who, was a documentary filmmaker at the time, but not doing journalism, but kind of just, it's all gray area. Sometimes you're just trying to get to the story. And here he was. His name's Peter Joseph. He's a guy that made the Zeitgeist movie trilogy, and he was invited to speak at Occupy Wall Street. And so when he got up, he didn't sound like everybody else. And I don't think people understood what he was saying. And he got the smallest applause out of all the speakers. And he didn't get boos, but I think they just didn't. What is he saying? Because the messaging of that movement was, we are the 99%. So the point of that movement was very familiar to what we're doing right now with No King. It's the same thing. You're saying, we are the people, you infected us, we're going to teach you a lesson, and we're going to hold you accountable, either in jail, either whatever it is. Either it's it's either putting you up on trial, putting you in jail, getting you out of here. In Trump's case, it's going to be, impeaching him, get him out. But it's not going to change the system. What Peter Joseph told us that day, and nobody wanted to hear it, he told us, we are not the 99%. We are the 100%. That's what we are. And do not fall for lock up the 1% and then we're going to be fine. It's not how it works. They're going to replace them with the next person. Netanyahu's going to be replaced with the next face. We're the 100%, and we demand a system that works for us. This system does not work for us. That always stuck with me. And I wanted to bring that up because all these years later, we're seeing this problem again, this we are the 99% problem. And it doesn't give us the solution that we really need, which is to fix the entire system from the ground up, not just punish the person at the top.
Well, sure, but the 1% have grown their wealth like tenfold in that 15-year stretch since that was said, and the divide has become that much greater. Consolidation has become an issue. You've now got Peter Thiel effectively having a lot of control over the intelligence communities, through Palantir, Anduril as a defense contractor, other entities that he's been a part of, and of course, a direct line to J.D. Vance because of the Founders Fund and supporting Narya Capital, and going back all the way to college. Apparently, J.D. Vance knew him from when he was in college. Thiel funded his campaign to the tune of $15 million. Remember that Vance and Trump, these guys were all Democrats. Like, they just bounced sides. The further reinforcement that it's a uniparty of that wealth that has really been making all the decisions. You go back to the Princeton University study of 2012 that indicated that we really, at a federal level, have no impact unless you are a max donor or a corporation that is going to feed a super PAC, or you're a bundler that can bring a bunch of money to a candidate. They're not really listening to you or interested in your agenda unless it aligns with one of the other donors' agendas that they do want to serve. And that's where I'm running into, so what do we do? How do we opt out of these potential systems to create a parallel system that does not include all of this enormous wealth as much as possible? Obviously you can't, doing it without cell phones, for example, it'd be awfully difficult in this world to go back to having no phone, for example, no device that we live for 100 years without, but technology does not go backwards.
No.
Now you see the introduction of AI and AI policing. I saw a robo-dog in the footage on the streets of LA. So now we see that is coming, where they're going to use the robots that will be controlled by AI that have, no soul, no ability to judge whether something is actually a mistake. It just fires and goes. It's a computer. And, these companies will end up getting liability waivers like they gave to the big pharma companies. So how do we manage to educate people about all of this stuff without getting them to boot us out because they're considering us conspiracy theorists, fearmongers, alarmist, and always focused on negative news and corruption, because there's so much of it in our system, and you've got to have your head on a swivel. I've been saying since 2016 that the intent is, it's like shock and awe that they started in 2003, right? How did they really attack Iraq? Was with the first night, shock and awe. They did a blitz kind of campaign where they hit all different areas pretty much simultaneously, where nobody could potentially pay attention to all of it or recover or communicate. And I feel like they've been doing that to us nonstop for close to a decade. And the people who've been paying attention are fucking exhausted, man. We're exhausted from paying attention. And I've only been really paying attention for like the last 4 years or so. Before that, I thought I was, but I was really just caught up in the duopoly nonsense and playing team sports effectively because Trump bad. But I really wasn't on Team Democrat because I saw how they knifed Bernie in 2016. I saw what they did with AOC initially. There was a lot of hype and excitement. I was on that train, and then I saw her get there and do a sit-in at Nancy's office and tweet out from the congressional meeting when they were like, hey guys, they're telling you how to make money. Like, okay, all right, we really have somebody in the building that's like representing us that's going to call out the bullshit. That stopped 2 days later. Like literally 2 days, they put the lid on that shit, right?
Yeah.
And I've basically been out on the entire thing since then. Yeah. They then brought me back in, psyoped me with 2020. We had, the thing with Bernie, and I was a Bernie guy, that we were ready to basically book tickets for inauguration after he won those first 3 primaries, or 3 of the first 4, and he won Nevada. No candidate had ever won those 3 and not gone on to be the nominee. And then they decided, Obama makes 3 phone calls, the world gets shut down, and they decide to threaten him with being the person that gave everybody COVID to go out and vote for him so that he could beat Joe Biden, which he never would because they would never allow that to happen anyway. I think they set him up with all of that, and he then had to be like, well, what am I going to do? I'm 78 years old. What am I going to do? I genuinely think that like that's kind of the choice that he made, and then he sold the fuck out. And no, he sold out before that. He already made the decision that he's got to go along with what they want. And so I believe that entire 2020 campaign, the entire campaign was a psyop. A sheep herding operation.
Yeah, not just when Obama made those phone calls. That's not when the psyop began. It began before that. And a good indicator of that is before COVID, before the lockdown, before they had that whole thing to pin on him and his people. Because Bernie bros, we were dangerous and we were privileged white, misogynist. That was the whole thing about 2016. Oh yeah, Bernie bros, and Hillary Clinton smeared us in her little book. But with Bernie, he was captured from the beginning of that campaign when he was ahead. You remember, so January of 2020, he was ahead in the polls, and people were freaking the hell out. All of the news pundits, CNN, MSNBC, they were freaking out. And Bernie, and so this was the moment of truth in that January where you go up to him and you ask, so people would ask him the question right on camera, how is this campaign different from last time? How are you feeling about your lead in this time? I mean, we're January 2020. I mean, this is like the elections later this year. But as far as the primary goes, you're looking really good. What's different? What is the thing you're doing differently? And he had the audacity to say, I'm only ahead in the polls because, as we know, Putin decided our last president last time, and he's certainly working behind the scenes to decide things now. So he's pretty much said in a nutshell, Putin is the reason I'm ahead right now. He
Russiagated himself.
He Russiagated himself right on cue. He did it to himself. No follow-up question. No hey, Bernie, you're not going to give credit to your own campaign for doing this. And by the way, here's another follow-up, because that's weird that you think that for some reason Putin wants you to be the nominee. Why is that? Because are you suggesting that you're going to be losing to Trump more than Biden or the other person you try to get Buttigieg, you try to get somebody else in there? You're suggesting, Bernie, that you would be the one to lose the most to Putin, so that's why Putin hand selected you, because he rigs our elections. I mean, so that at that point, it's a psyop. It is. There's no other explanation. And then, like you said, sheep herding, keeping us in the party. We should have bolted out of that party in 2016 after that convention. Should have been it. We should have all gone independent that moment. But I stayed in too. I was, he's got a plan. He's got a 6D chess. And we didn't call it 6D chess at the time. But this is why we tell our MAGA friends now, who are not Zionists, but the ones that thought that Trump was going to take on Israel and take on all this stuff, and he's not doing it. And they're using the term 6D chess. And we're telling you guys, listen, we've been through this before. We are still traumatized by Bernie doing this to us twice. It's not real. There's no 6D chess. He's captured and he's doing the thing on behalf of the people he actually works for. So we're warning those people right now. And I think I have to say, I'll give them some credit, Andy. I'll say a lot of the MAGAs, and again, not the Zionists. You can't. That's a whole nut. I'm talking about the ones that said Trump's going to take on the deep state. He's going to undo the bullshit that the Democratic Party did.
Right, and you're going to see the Epstein list, and you're going to see him push back on Israel, and you're going to see him announce that Israel was the one that sunk the Liberty, and that Israel was involved in killing JFK, and Israel was involved in 9/11, and you were going to hear all of the truth, the real truth, come out that we've been protecting for decades now. And it comes back to Netanyahu, the guy who always shows up to make sure that truth is never out, is Netanyahu, but he's only the face. You've got AIPAC, you've got the Adelsons, you've got Bill Ackman, you've got Zionists of America, is a highly influential organization, all right, that has been pushing narratives, that has been pushing the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act bills that they're trying to pass to, again, try to make it illegal to say that Israel is committing a genocide, to make it illegal to say that, to say free Palestine or river to the sea or a lot of different things that we could be locked up for having this conversation at some point, which is beyond insane. Look, and this is one of the other things we didn't really get to yet, was talking about the clampdown worldwide on narrative, on speech in general, on speaking out against Israel, on control in other countries, that we've had the benefit and the luck, the fortune of having the First Amendment and having some kind of semblance of free speech in this country still, where we've seen other journalists raided, had their equipment taken, been arrested, been murdered. I mean, right up to murdered for reporting the truth about what's happening out there. I mean, and then Palestinian journalists on top of that, now, and in the last 48 hours since we spoke, Israel has put Gaza on a total internet blackout. So nobody knows what's happening there. They cannot communicate with the outside world and tell anybody how intense the bombings were, how many people were murdered this time, and where they dropped a bomb on this and killed this. Man, it's just brutal. So, what has been your assessment as far as that ramp up? I know you've seen it and been calling it out. Again, how do we support these journalists? I guess it's just telling their stories and making sure that people know who they are and that this is continually happening, because you've got those people in the streets of LA. Do they know that or care that people in the UK can't have the kind of free Palestine speech, and that they've got cops knocking on their door over social media posts for citizens, people who regularly protest like them, and that can make its way very easily here? I don't know.
They don't know. They don't have a clue because their tribe leaders never told them that that was happening. And you think that that would be, hey, if the idea is Trump is the ultimate villain, you think that that calling out him and like you said, it's way worse in Europe right now. But the idea that we even have these things going, these bills going, these ridiculous, insane anti-speech, anti-constitution, anti-American bills going through, even that they would even be put in front of the House, and like you're talking about making these illegal, having cops knock on your door for your social media post, which is a real thing. They don't know it's a real thing. You would think that their tribe leaders would want to point out that Trump's been going extra crazy on that, because isn't the idea to make him the villain? So you should be suspect of, why won't you tell me that part? Why are you leaving out the part about Palantir? Why are you leaving out the part about the security state? Why are you leaving out all these things that can make him look real bad? And anybody else is doing this in Europe. Why are you leaving that out? I thought the idea is Trump is the biggest, as Bernie says, the biggest existential threat we've ever faced. And it's like, why are you leaving those parts out?
And the Epstein list and Bondi and her ties to Scientology.
Yeah. So I think that the conversations start with, and I'm going to go back to the thing you said earlier when you said that it's exhausting for what we do is exhausting. We're called conspiracy theorists. We are exhausted. We do feel like that we're constantly having to dig and say, what are they not telling us? So there's a lot of truth to that, to the exhaustion and the constant digging, because no one else is. Here's the good news about it. Just because we have extra weight on our shoulders, and just because it takes us extra hours and hours to look at stuff that the other people are just getting the headline on CNN, and it feels like it's so off balance. How will we ever reach those people that don't put the time and effort that we do? Well, here's the good news. If you look at it like this, they are all doing almost half of what we're doing without as much effort. And here's what I mean by that. They're kind of all conspiracy theorists themselves, just only half as much as us, right? So they've been told that Trump and the MAGAs plotted an insurrection. They've been told that, there's a plot to take down. They've been told about the plots that make the other team look bad and their team look good. So they've processed those plots. They're constantly thinking about those plots. You see them every once in a while acting like we do sometimes, but again, it's only half of it. When they thought, oh, why would there be a shot of Trump at his ear and he comes, so they're going down their own set of rabbit holes already, right? Thinking about what are they up to? Why are they trying to set up? There's this plot. It's all conspiracy theorists. They just don't get labeled that because they're sticking to their tribe narrative. I think it's our job to say, hey, listen, you guys already understand that half of the system is corrupt. You're already there. Good for you. We agree with you on all that. Now it's time to introduce you to the other half. And this is the Peter Joseph philosophy. They're all bad. It's all bad. You don't have a hero. You thought you had a hero. We did too. We can empathize with you. We thought Obama was going to go in and sweep up, clean up. Oh, the lawyer, he had the lawyer background. He's going to go in and hold people accountable for weapons of mass destruction and for illegal torture programs. He's going to do all of that, and money laundering, Halliburton, and all that. No, he didn't. And so now we know that they were all in on it. Now we know that it's across the board. But again, the conspiracy theory mindset, we're not the only ones with it. They have it too. They only do half of it. We have to introduce them to the second half and align with them on the part they already got right. And we do the same with the MAGAs. We say, hey, you guys saw all the corruption of the Democratic Party. You saw them take away the primary. You saw them lock everyone down and shut down schools and take away free speech and start a proxy war in the Ukraine. You saw all of this stuff happen, and you know how that works. You know how you can be captured. Well, we're going to introduce to you that your team is doing the same thing. So that's our job, is to empathize with them on how far they've come. Good job. You made it to the halfway to half court. We got to get you to the other side with us. Once we can do that with everybody, we can build a real populist movement from the outside in. It's not going to happen from the inside out. It's going to be outside in, bottom to the top. It's a bottom-up movement, not from the top down. You should be absolutely concerned that the Waltons are funding this thing this weekend, and that should absolutely concern you, because that's not how movements are done. Organizing happens from the ground up. So that's my semi-optimistic take, that maybe we could look at it that we're kind of halfway there? I don't know.
Well, it's getting them, convincing them that there is a path outside of the duopoly, because I think it scares them that to be opposed to 95% of the country right now. I mean, unfortunately, it was like, I believe 95% of the votes in the 2024 election were for Team Red or Team Blue. And but the biggest vote was for none of the above. And that is where I feel like we have some kind of an edge, is to convince those people who don't want to vote that you're right for not voting because the system doesn't work for you. Let's push to make sure that the system works for us by getting the people that, again, it's kind of funny. This whole no kings, the narrative is terrible because they've done nothing but hold kings up to a higher standard in the Democratic Party. And it's just interesting because they still treat Obama like a king. And a lot of people call the Biden administration Obama's third term in a lot of ways, and know that Biden wasn't even running the show. And oh yeah, by the way, to pile on to what you said in another way to convince Democrats that their party doesn't give a crap about them, how about the fact that they anointed their presidential candidate and did it in such a sneaky way that they didn't give anybody a chance to vote against her? They didn't give anybody a chance to choose her. She was installed. And there was no backlash and not nearly enough pushback within the party itself about that. And they're now suffering the consequences because they are a leaderless ship. They are a rudderless ship. There's a bunch of people, Newsom maybe, but a lot of people don't like Newsom, and he nationally will probably get smoked. There was the woman, Whitmer out of Michigan. And if you start looking at the chessboard, they really don't have a bench for 2028. So I think that they're expecting that they're going to already, that they're probably going to end up losing that election. So how do they set themselves up so that they can maybe find a leader that emerges? But that's got to be a corporatist for them. And that is, how do we overcome the money? How do we get a Citizens United overturned? How do we get anybody to change this? Like you said, it can't happen from the inside. So the laws aren't necessarily going to be changed. The answer is probably in building up some kind of a company and some kind of capitalistic enterprise to compete with what's out there. I hope that it doesn't get swallowed up, crushed, co-opted, etc., and work to make sure that it doesn't by setting up parallel systems of communication that can't be intercepted, set up relationships that are stronger than being infiltrated potentially. I mean, there aren't a whole lot of great solutions out there, but there are people that are certainly giving it a shot. I think that people that are opting out of the system as much as possible, growing their own food wherever possible, and farmers markets, supporting and buying local versus big corporations. Our buddy Oz, they have chickens. He said they haven't bought eggs in 2 years at his house, and they make their own bread. So they don't buy bread. And these little things start adding up. And then, Steve Poikonen over at AM Wake Up talks about, he has Texas Slim come on his show from the Beef Initiative, and meeting the rancher and shaking your rancher's hand and buying your meat directly from the rancher if you're not vegetarian or vegan, and you're into buying that kind of stuff, or even cheese, and buying all of that direct from the farmer. Shake your rancher's hand and get that direct to be able to support their business and eliminate the middlemen in between. Plus you get better, purer food. You know what they're growing. They're not putting hormones and steroids and everything, and really start to use the government back for what it was designed to be for. It almost sounds libertarianish in a way, but it's not. Again, I am labels are bad. I think there are some good things that you can pull from each ideology. that you pull together to make the salad that is an American, ideally, because capitalism certainly drives the economy. I mean, I'm not a capitalist. I am a capitalist, although because we have to be. We have no choice. We live in a capitalistic system. But there's a lot of social programs. We'd love universal health care. That certainly is a system that I think could be revamped. But that's also tied to big pharma, right?
Well, yeah, that's the universal healthcare is the craziest one because we've been passionate about it too, Indy. I mean, the whole way it's been like that was the reveal, one of the many reveals but a big one of the Democratic Party does not have your back, doesn't care about you because we're living in the state of California and it's a completely blue and we don't have Medicare for all. It's like there's a reason why, and we have the highest homelessness in the country, and
CalCare is going broke, right?
Yeah, so you can't blame it on the Republicans anymore. The Democrats don't even want you to have it. And then the other reveal that came during COVID is what we realized because we get, and again, we told the story about the homeless left starting in a place where we were responding to COVID. We made a lot of friends with a lot of populist righties that really aligned with our messaging of we're going to hold on to free speech. We're going to hold on to by the way, bodily autonomy all of a sudden became very big on the right during COVID when the left ditched it. That happened. We know it happened because we said, no, you got to have a say in what happens to your body. Really, that's so interesting. They were telling us that on the left our whole lives, and all of a sudden it's swapped. Well, all that said, we think about the universal health care. We think about Medicare for all. Let's just pretend in a hypothetical that they gave it to us. They did the thing that they've always been taking our money and running on and campaigning on and getting all of our blood, sweats, and tears in the streets for and knocking on doors for. Let's say they actually did it, which they could have. They could have. Where does that leave us? It leaves us completely tied with big pharma and completely dependent on the way they're going to conduct our healthcare. So to me, it's like a salt on the wound on another wound on another wound. It's like how many times can they screw us? You won't even put the effort in to giving us the thing that we want so you can corrupt that thing and control us with it. You won't even do that. So we're worse off than being in a controlled healthcare system. You won't even let us in the door to get the healthcare. Wow, that's how bad it is. So out of principle, I still fight for Medicare for all, for universal healthcare. But at the end of the day, I only fight for it because it's the right thing to do. I don't really think it's going to be effective when we get it because they are so corrupt that run everything. It's going to screw us anyways. I just fight for it because it's the right thing. They're never actually giving it to us. It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Well, it's because, first of all, big pharma has too much influence over our lawmakers, and they're also buying off the commercials on TV to make sure that those negative stories about big pharma don't get out there. Everything was sponsored by Pfizer because they made so much profit. They pumped a whole bunch of that back into marketing, and I can't believe that was actually not regulated by the government as part of the COVID shots. But if you think about universal health care, I would love for the government to cover my health care, not this government, not this government deciding over whether I had to take that experimental shot or not. I mean, I was pressured into doing that by family twice, and never again. I regretted doing it when I did. And, the recovery rate, the survival rate was much higher. I did have someone close to me, that was hospitalized, and they wanted to put her on a ventilator, and she fought very hard against that. And she's had long COVID and had challenges ever since, although she had some health stuff before. It exacerbated it. The problem, again, is that there's a lot of people in this country that aren't healthy enough to work and produce anything, but they still need health care that costs sometimes more money, and somebody's got to absorb that cost somewhere, somehow. And I think that all of us we have enough resources to be able to do it. Yeah, the resources go into the military every year. And we need to cut that back by 75% to be able to really afford our healthcare. It's why every other country can afford it. They don't spend 10x on their military and to support 800 bases worldwide. I genuinely feel like That is where the money comes from. Trump's now bragging about $1 trillion spend on the military, getting bombastic against China with Taiwan rhetoric, looking at supporting Israel with a war against Iran. And there are talks potentially of a truce in Ukraine, Russia, but that's still ongoing. So now you're talking about supporting 3 fronts simultaneously. And oh yeah, you've still got this thing going on at the border and ICE and CCOT and imprisoning. They want to imprison 20,000 people at Guantanamo Bay. They want to reopen and shift what Guantanamo Bay does to basically just handle Venezuela migrants that Trump doesn't want coming in. He seems to think that he can deport his way out of the mix that is changing the dynamic and the demographics of the country, that is scaring the base that got him elected, that they fear-mongered about great replacement. It's not great replacement. It's just not. It certainly is a melting pot, and it has evolved over time. And a lot of those people have come here because we bombed their country, because we made it so untenable for them to live there that they had no other choice. But they knew, come to America. It's the land of opportunity. You could show up with nothing on your back, be a refugee, and become successful with hard work and a little bit of luck. And that's a better chance than they have anywhere else right now. So they throw everything on their back. They risk life, limb, and everything else to come here. They do everything the right way, and then they're told, no thanks, you got to go home. And they're either sent home or they're sent to a maximum security prison for life because of their tattoo. It's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
And again, that's part of how they're trying to intimidate Americans and U.S. born. I don't want to call us native born because there already were native population, but naturalized citizens here that were born in the United States. Okay, like us, they are trying to send us a message. Mahmoud Khalil, Ramacia Ozturk, Kelmar Abrego Garcia, all of these people had been speaking out. Most of them had been speaking out on behalf of the Palestinian people against what Israel is doing. And that seems to be when the government starts to look closely at you and start to come down on you. So are they going to continue doing? I'm guessing that for now, but with all that's happening with Iran, if they don't get what they want and we don't get sucked into a war with Iran, does the Zionist narrative continue to have as much effect and impact as it did before?
I think that with this big, beautiful bill, let's not forget that this is all designed. The timing of it, we have to look at all the timing of this. The big, beautiful bill, the deal with Palantir, everything is on a calendar. All you got to do is look at the calendar. You can see when they decided to do these these ICE raids in LA. This was to start this new, whatever you want to call it, new color revolution, George Floyd times 1,000, whatever this is going to happen this weekend. This is all based on the timing of the infrastructure to not give the people any choice. They have to play along. They've already signed up for it. This is that BS they say about, well, the Palestinian people, they voted for Hamas, so they get what they deserve. And like we've heard that garbage. But no, this is actually a case of we might be past the point where they need to sell this anymore to us because they already have this. So the big, beautiful bill, there's the clause, the 10-year clause that very specifically says that states cannot challenge the AI part of this thing. And so that is Palantir, direct Palantir. And we looked into some stuff and saw that it's all connected. You think this is not isolated, that these protests and this big day of No King's Day, it's all connected to the Iran being basically terrorized by the U.S. and Israel last night and what's going to happen next. It's all connected because Palantir has all the contracts. Palantir is probably, as best we can tell, Palantir is the number one reason why their intel was so sharp that they could pull off the attack last night. So they're directly involved with all of these operations as we move forward into this massive surveillance state. It's the Patriot Act times a million. Here we are. We haven't learned any lessons from where we came from, and it's like we're walking right into it. So I don't know if they need to sell things anymore. If Alex Karp can go around talking about punishing enemies. We bring peace by punishing people, by killing them once in a while. When he talks about it, like exactly what you said, he's saying it out loud. He's saying wars on three fronts. He's saying we're gonna start shit with Iran, with Russia, with China, all at the same time. And he's doing it on behalf of the Zionist cult he comes from, and the Greater Israel Project, which is all part of the design. And we're just doing it like step by step, closer and closer to that goal. And I don't think you're going to have to sell it anymore. We're already doing it. We're already on the ride. You don't have to convince the American people to get on the roller coaster. We're already on the roller coaster. They've already strapped us in. We can't get out. We're going up that hill, and we're about to go down and loop the loop. And then, we looked ahead, and the track ends over there, and we're about to go off. And they don't have to convince us anymore because we're already screaming, and our arms are flaying above our heads. And we should have, stayed off the roller coaster, like in those Final Destination movies. We're like, hey, maybe we shouldn't get on. Too late.
Well, and it's funny. I read something else today that questioned it. I hadn't even really thought about it, but considering that that Trump is planning on having this big celebration for July 4th, why would No King's Day be on June 14th when it could be potentially on July 4th to counter what he's trying to do and be in celebration of the country and freedom and America and no kings? If you think about it that way, but there's already been talk about some kind of a false flag operation happening on that day as well.
Yeah. Well, there is one being planned. I hate to, it's so much bad news, Andy, so much bad news, but we had the great Dr. David Martin on the show with us. He's called COVID from the beginning, not just the beginning as in 2020, 2019, the beginning. He's talking about tracing all the patents, this entire plot to create the virus to then justify distributing the thing. There were all the patents were in place. This whole thing was planned from the 60s. But he talks. We know about Event 201. We know the simulation of how we're going to get the manufacture of the global consent, all the different ways we do it. We know it was a NATO operation. So there is now a pamphlet available. People can find it. It's being shared on Twitter. Dr. Dave Martin came on our show and revealed it. We were the he told he had very limited places he was willing to go and tell this story to. And I think we were like the second show that he revealed this to. And now everybody's sharing this. It's pretty wild. It's this document that basically shows us a simulation that's already taken place a year ago. They've already put this in place, and it's a bioterrorism attack for July 4th. On the American people. It's basically a best of greatest hits of 9/11 and COVID put together, where you have a terrorist attack in a bioform, in a virus form, but we blame it on a foreign entity, and we say they got us when we were weak. They did it to us. They struck us right in the heart, just like the Twin Towers. They knew they could get us right in the heart, right on our Independence Day, and it seems that they're planning 280 million
thousand 280,000 deaths. It's a tabletop exercise that Joe Lieberman apparently was a part. It's really funny that you mention this, because somebody brought it to my attention earlier in the week, and I was like, let me look a little bit at this. It is a 150-page report of the Bipartisan Commission on Biodefense. All right, and it was from last April, from a year ago. They tabletop exercised this. Now, if you remember, Event 201 happened about 8, 9 months, 10 months before COVID officially started, where they gamed this out. The Hunter Biden laptop story was tabletop exercised out about 4 months before the laptop story actually broke, in order to prepare people for all different facets of how is this going to go down when it does. And so that's interesting. So Dr. Martin, was he part of this exercise, or he was just aware of it?
He got his hands on it, and he just said, I'm going to get this out to as many people. And he's very firm about it. Look, we didn't I wasn't in a position to be like, well, first of all, I couldn't read the whole thing then. I've gone through it now, and it definitely checks out. But the fascinating part is that if you look at Dr. David Martin's history, he's basically been right about like everything big. Like he shouts it pretty loud, and he says, I'm telling you guys that this is going to happen. So I don't, we're just want to get the information out. We're not trying to scare everyone. We're just saying, just keep your eyes open. And you've gone through this too. So you probably noticed there's a part where there's going to be little hints of it leading up. So who knows if we're paying attention and we don't see any sign of this leading up to the 4th of July, maybe that's a good thing. Like when I say seeing little signs, I'm talking about unexplained sicknesses that happen here or there that sprinkle throughout, like just kind of the weeks leading up, because we're not there yet, right? We're still I guess you consider mid June now, but when we get there, when July 1st comes, or a few days ahead, let's just keep our eyes open and see what's going on. But I would suggest nobody take a plane that day. Just be chill. And I don't know what's going to happen, but you're right. This is literally a workshop, event 201 workshop for this next we'll call it a pandemic. This is how you manufacture consent. You keep people afraid, and then you pin it on a foreign entity, probably China. That makes the most sense. And then you manufacture consent for another war and another lockdown and another stay in place, another we're all in this together, another we're gonna have to cancel Thanksgiving this year, another you're either with us or you're against us, you're either with the with us or with the terrorists, all those little slogans that have been trialed over and over, and so it's literally a best of the things that have worked. They're combining it all together. We'll see, or nothing will happen, and I mean that would be great news, but it doesn't.
This is the document. Yeah. I'm showing it on screen. Okay. So it says here, this is just one of the narratives. As the biological data, human health, and cyber domains become more interconnected and interdependent, security lapses in one arena could greatly affect security in others. So again, you're going to see more privacy breaches, more security breaches, and that's the excuse for your data's already all out there, man. Like once they have one and a breach of one, they're going to be able to find it all. And this is one of the ways that they're going to come at us again. How is this naturally happening? And they're already deciding what pathogens and a range of factors. And this is what I wanted to look at. This is what like talking points for leadership. How the biological threat is real and growing. This is all, again, manufactured. Oh, look at this. U.S. AMRID, U.S. Army Medical Research, used it to perpetrate the anthrax attacks that year. Right. Poor biosecurity. So they're saying that it could be a lab leak, potentially. They're saying that it could be a lot of things. Yes, it could be. But they're definitely expecting in this exercise that something like this does. You don't spend the kind of money that they spend to game something out like this, unless you're expecting that something like this is really going to happen. You don't bring in the kind of level of people that they're bringing in to game this out and to figure out these solutions, unless you're anticipating that at some point that might potentially happen. Again, if you look at who the commissioners were, Joe Lieberman and Tom Ridge, who was Homeland Security, Donna Shalala, Health and Human Services Secretary, Tom Daschle, who was also in the Senate, Fred Upton, Susan. So, like, they've got big names that used to do this, that have a good idea and are plugged in and have enough connections currently on the Hill that if something like this went down, what they did in this exercise will be pulled out as the template for here's how we're going to do this.
Yeah. So again, I think it's about getting the information out to people. And so I feel good that we had the opportunity to do this. And the reason we did is because we've been in this arena, the entire way we've been doing the homeless left. We started the medical freedom movement was very important to us, and it was an opportunity to align with people on the other side that felt the same way we did about why the entire the entire country was upside down during COVID, and we wanted to do something about it. And so aligning with those people were great. Having opportunities to have very important people come on, and I say important, I mean doctors and scientists, people that had the courage to stand up against the state narrative, and they lost a lot. They lost all their bonuses. People that all the bribe money, they had to switch practices. They got shamed and bullied. They stuck at it. So these are the people we want to hear from, and that's why we were able to have Dr. David Martin come on. And we did our part. We had the conversation. His sound actually was a little fuzzy. People pointed that out. They go, you should have checked the doctor's mic beforehand. I go, well, we had to jump right in. So he had there was a little issue there, but people could hear it. They understood it. I did a share out of it ended up being like an hour and change. It's the highest watched interview we have by far on Rumble. I think we had like 40,000 people saw it on a Rumble channel. But here's the best part. On my Twitter, unbelievable, Andy. I'm telling you, like I took a 5-minute clip, I put it up on my Twitter, and I have almost 500,000 people have seen it. 500,000. Well, and for me, like I'm not a fearmonger. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier Peter McCullough and David Martin. I believe they both had some connection to the Wellness Company, which also has connections to Rumble. I'd love to hear it, because I know Amazing Polly actually clipped it out and said something about that. And I wanted to give you a chance. I wanted to ask you about that, because I didn't really get to see the Homeless Left. I know you said you would address that and talked about it.
Sure.
And what his story was with that. So I'd love some clarification on that.
Okay. Well, this is the good news about being in a space where, on one hand, you have people that come with a lot of controversy, and then you hear these reveals happen, and then you get to hear firsthand accounts of how other players are responding to this information in real time. So let's take the Wellness Company. That was actually on our 10th episode. See, we're on like 113 now. Go back to episode 10. That was probably at the time definitely the biggest thing we'd ever done, because we barely started, and we had the actual Wellness Company founders come on our show before anybody knew who they were. And they dropped us a code after. They gave us 10% off for your Homeless Left. We did a little ad. We threw it up there. Nobody saw it. Nobody did it. We lost the code probably 6 months later. But within that 6 months, we saw everybody else picked it up. Everybody. You saw Russell Brand doing. You saw Jimmy Dore. And I was just like, man, if we had, it's like they had a pyramid set up where you're like, if you had somebody under you, and one of our colleagues said, "Oh, Matt, I didn't know that Jimmy Dore was so big. I was in charge of giving him the code. I could have given him a code under you, and you would have gotten." I was like, okay, whatever. Look, we're dealing with right-wing populist people in the medical freedom community. They think like capitalists. They still think, even with all the psyop of COVID, they still think communism is the absolute worst thing imaginable, disgusting, yay capitalism. So what do you get? What you get is this independent group of doctors starting this Wellness Company. And again, we had them on. Peter Coulson, that's the guy that he's tied to BlackRock. I didn't know these things at the time. So I'm not going to apologize for having the conversations. I'm not going to apologize for the association. What I am going to tell people, though, is we can talk to people and then we can find out information. I'm not going to apologize for talking to them, but I will say this: when people found out his connection and the fact that the ultimate goal of the Wellness Company seems to be to get to the same place of the thing they were fighting against. This is capitalism. You're in it for the money. So even though you're revealing things to people, you're telling them things about their health that they didn't know, and you feel good about giving them products. Their products are also designed to have lifelong customers. We realize that. So the products we were doing the 10% off code, and you go to Jimmy Dore and Russell Brand. They're not doing it, and no one's doing it anymore.
No, a lot of them still are. You'd be surprised.
A lot of them still are. But I think people saw Polly's reporting and they go, you know what? Let me look into this again. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And I think that's the thing. So you have this capitalist model of pharma. It's like out with the old pharma, in with the new. It's the same thing. It's just on a smaller scale, but it's getting lifelong customers. You tell them you have to take this forever. This will protect you from those guys. And then we're on a plan. Next shipment.
Yeah, so you never know who to believe or what, what to think. It's basically just you have to trust your own doctor and hope that they're not on the take from one of these organizations in order to push a program. But it feels like a doctor is going to have to be aligned with some kind of a program in order to be able to exist and be able to have support in this system that's going forward. I don't really know how it's going to work. I don't know with the Trump administration and the Republicans looking to take away the amount of Medicaid, of which 20% of the country is currently using or on right now. Like, that's going to be a nightmare where people's health care costs, while they're already stretched on their thin dime, are going to continue to go up and in some cases explode. I mean, rent's going up, debt's going up. Like, where is anybody going to end up getting relief somewhere? That's where my concern is. The whole thing is going to end up crashing because people don't have the relief and they won't be able to afford everything that they need. And then what happens?
This system is designed to fail. It's not sustainable. We know this. So as we know, empires fall, they go out kicking and screaming. We're witnessing that. We are experiencing that right now in real time. The kicking and the screaming. Up your military budget as far as possible. Extend militarily as far as possible. Just completely deprive your own people of any sort of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The things that our country's founded on. Just completely abandon those principles. And then screw with your currency as much as you can. You keep the interest rate scam and the printing money scam, the privatized system. We've known this whole thing was going to fail from the beginning, and it's just too bad that we never really had a chance to call it out when it should have been called out. And so we were born into this. So what can we do? I don't know what we can do we were literally born on the sinking Titanic. And welcome to life. We're create. Oh, you happen to be on a sinking Titanic. Well, have fun. Good luck. And you can maneuver around the ship and have the band play for you as all the chairs are falling off and the people are stealing the boats. Maybe you can end up at the top with Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio and be the last ones to sink. But and then what? Maybe grab a raft. Maybe freeze in the water. Who knows? But that's what we were born into. So I don't know how we build another ship or how we figure out how to float on water or not die to freeze to death. I don't know the answer, but I think that if there's still people that don't know that the ship is sinking, at least what we can do as it's going down is wake people up from their naps and tell them you're on a sinking ship. Let's at least try and do something in our final moments here. I hate to be so doom and gloom, but we do have our voices. We still have our voices.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a pretty good place to kind of leave it for now. So I'm just showing your Twitter. Let's show them where they can find you, and then we'll come back and do this again, man, because this was a lot of fun. I think it was a really interesting discussion, and there's a lot happening on an ongoing basis. I certainly want to keep the dialogue open. So they can find you. I think it's Twitter, Rumble, and YouTube are the places primarily, right?
Yeah, those are the places. I think you're able to DM me on Twitter if you guys want, but just follow me there. Matt Weinglass. Homeless Left's on Twitter as well. It's just we have a smaller presence there, but the Homeless Left on Rumble, that's our main our home base for all of our content. And then of course our YouTube is I just am really happy that our second try at YouTube, since the first one got the plug pulled on it, is doing pretty well, and I'm happy for that. And we're crossing our fingers that the monetization happens. We submitted for it. We're in the waiting period, and we hope it works. But in the meantime, we're going to keep doing the content, giving it to you guys, the best we can, twice a week, as much as we can, and keep having these conversations. Thanks for everything, Indy. Like, I appreciate these are the type of conversations that are important that we have to keep doing, for sure.
Yeah, my brother, for sure. All right, man. Well, everybody, before we get out of here, let me show real quick some of the incredible supporters that do support our network and how you can also help us, because we are exclusively user-funded. We take no sponsorships. We don't have a wellness company sponsorship, and we don't have any big donors. We have you. So some of the people highlighted are some of the people that consistently have supported us the most over the years. But everybody on that board has contributed, and we love all of you, and that's our wall of fame. It's really important to us to grow that base if possible. So Share if you can. Couple of bucks at Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network. We got a website where you can direct donate at indienewsnow.com. There's a section called Keep the News Free. And then we've got our Substacks at innewsletter.com, which we publish daily, and indiemediatoday.com. That's my Substack, where I'll publish How Do We Miss That clips and appearances, and I'll share some INN stuff along the way as well. But, man, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks, everybody. Again, I want to say support independent media because we need it more than ever to hold everybody accountable. And we'll see you soon. This has been INN One-on-One, Indy and Matt Weinglass. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks so much.
You can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen? 50,000 died, and now we know our mission. We form a militia, make Congress a prison.